When recognizing the supremacy of the West that was consolidated after the collapse of the USSR, Putin poked the wound of global and hidden power. The Western world was offended, but as the saying goes, water always takes the offended. Since Putin's declaration in 2007 about the injustice of the existing world order, the West remains passive, reacting as an offended. From that moment on, the paths of the West and Vladimir Putin diverged forever. Putin was undeterred by the words and did not back down. He consistently undermined the power of the West, undoing connections and exposing falsehoods. The West reacted with pain and hostility, feeling offended and resentful, but without realizing the seriousness and durability of the situation. After the annexation of Crimea, the West noticed that Putin started to dismantle the unipolar world order from the ruins of Russia. A war is already underway on multiple fronts, including in the arms race. Now, a new front has opened with the constitutional reform led by Putin, promptly recognized as a threat by the West. The reform aims to eliminate the risks of weakening control by 2024, a period considered by Western intelligence centers as the peak of fragility of the Russian state system. All potential threats of Western retaliation are concentrated in the 2021 to 2024 interval. Putin has been systematically acting to close all gaps of possibility in the face of criticism. In this scenario, the main mission of the West has become to undermine the approval process of the constitutional changes as much as possible. Postponement would ruin Putin's plan to gain time through surprise, preventing the consolidation of all hostile groups of influence. The longer the delays and the more heated the disputes, the weaker the elite's agreement and the less understanding from the people, resulting in more conflicts, concessions, and compromises. The reform is becoming increasingly distant from its original purpose. The liberal establishment, the influence of agents, Western NGOs, and Western advisors are united in preventing Putin's plans. They persist in their efforts to promote greater democracy and the rule of law in Russia. A former professor from the University of Hamburg, specializing in the law of Eastern European countries, was one of Yeltsin's advisors in 1993. According to foreign sources, he is against the reform of the Russian constitution through parliamentary approval. Now, a well-known Western NGO is advocating the need for genuine reform, not just a substitute. A movement in defense of voters' rights, in accordance with the Constitution, is being organized. The West considers the voting unacceptable due to the slow pace of reform. The referendum is a complex and time-consuming issue. Experienced lawyers know that an effective way to undermine the success chances of the process is to prolong it and explore all procedural resources available in the legislation. NGOs argue that there is no clear legislation for voting and that it is essential that the issue be approved by the federal parliament. Following this path, the process will become more extensive. During this period, Putin's opponents will mobilize intensively and cause divisions within the elite. There is no need to hurry with the changes, as there are many domestic supporters, not out of sympathy for the West. Not everyone, however, can guarantee the maintenance of their current privileges. It is precisely for this reason that the reform is being initiated in the manner in which it was started. Putin has started a blitzkrieg, but translating it to a prolonged campaign completely distorts the original idea. People will eventually get exhausted of this prolonged fight, and the referendum will not increase participation, opening up space for a new opposition movement to question its legitimacy. This is not just a common political crisis. It is something more. The plan is feasible, but as the battle unfolds around constitutional reform, proposals emerge to include in the constitution a ban on discussing and carrying out the separation of Russian territory. The rich Lenka electorate quickly solidified, accelerating the discussion and drastically reducing the chances of failure in the scenario. Additionally, the Western strategy of buying off the elite isolating Putin's successor until they gained strength, and initiating the territorial division process of the country was implemented without the presence of the Russian leader. In addition to Kuril, there are many interesting topics such as Kaliningrad, Crimea, Caucasus, Abkhazia, and South Ossetia. Donbass is a territory attracted to Russia, with the presence of the EEC and ESG. The overall pace of integrating separate Russian territories is not acceptable to the West as a whole. The recent constitutional amendment aims to end any possibility of Russia's disintegration, the translation of the new and most terrifying movement in the West, which caused the initial goal of delaying the reform schedule under the pretext of fighting for its legitimacy to be forgotten. The situation has become quite delicate. Ignoring the initiative of the Constitutional Commission is not an option, as it would be a sign of weakness. On the other hand, reacting is also not appropriate, since it is strictly an internal matter of Russia. As a result, the lack of interest in the subject at a higher level was observed, leading the discussion to experts and social media. The Japanese were the most vocal, with the Japanese government's Secretary General, Suga, stating that constitutional reform is an internal issue of Russia. Political scientist Akira Nakamura believes that the Japanese government is reacting peacefully to these constitutional changes. According to him, it is a political strategy prior to the anniversary of the victory. While the Japanese government mentions possible changes in negotiation approaches, public opinion is more direct. It is essential that our legislators understand that these lands will not be returned without armed conflicts. Putin stated that he will not give up the northern territories. Therefore, our Minister of Foreign Affairs should resign. Putin has banned any discussion of the return of the territories. The northern territories are definitively lost. With Putin's restrictions in the constitution, there is no room for concessions on Russia's part. This situation highlights the Russians' intransigence, as they will not return the islands. Did you really think you could buy them with money and technology? I don't intend to return to my city. The situation of our foreign policy is chaotic. Declarations from the Japanese segment of Facebook have spread across several Russian social networks. In the United States, Baba Yaga is becoming increasingly discontented. Krista Vegand, an expert from the Tennessee Global Security Study Center, acknowledged in an interview with the American portal For Truth that Russia is not willing to follow international norms, warning about the dangers faced by Japan and Ukraine. International rules are determinations elaborated for the followers of Washington, delimiting the scope of its influence, something that Vladimir Putin does not accept regarding the claimed Russian territories. They serve as tools of division and subjugation, attributing grazing lands to the inner circle of followers. Territories far from peoples considered barbarians are converted into provinces, and uncontrolled areas are subjugated. The actions related to Latin America, South Africa, Kyrgyzstan, or any other region were unsuccessful. It will be impossible to engage internal elites in the discussion and cause a division due to constitutional restrictions. The article by Arthur Evans in the Fort Russ newspaper addresses the reaction to Putin's doctrine, highlighting that America condemns while neighboring countries accept reality. Republished in various European media outlets, the author emphasizes Putin's firm statement on the introduction of constitutional amendments related to the country's territorial integrity. The consolidation of Russia's territorial policy has been strongly condemned by the US. Some believe that under the leadership of Putin, this situation cannot unfold. However, if a weak president succeeds him, similar to Yeltsin in the 1990s, any outcome in this direction becomes possible. Later, the author mentions, many individuals on the liberal spectrum resisted the possibility of disintegration and separation, and thus adopted the slogan, "Let's give everything the West desires." The consolidation of Russian territory under Vladimir Putin's firm leadership was quick and effective. In Russian history, The personalities of politicians play a crucial role in decision-making, regardless of the country's military and economic power. And Russia still faces challenges of disintegration and separation. There is a danger that a group of people may again adopt the 90s slogan, "The West or Death." The French Ministry of Foreign Affairs officially recognizes the provisions of the Russian constitution as internal affairs, but at the same time highlights the importance of fulfilling international commitments. Once bound by the constitutional formulations of 1993, Russia is not easily freed. Other experts believe that Russia is taking legitimate measures to protect its territory in response to recent Western intervention. Since 2014, some politicians recognize that Russia has been the target of repeated attacks by Western countries, thus justifying its defensive reaction. The situation in Crimea is different from that of Croatia and the Baltic countries, with the West applying double standards. Experts agree that American neocons are unable to bring about the collapse of the Russian Federation. Vladimir Putin will be remembered as a leader who resisted the American empire and strengthened Russia, causing discontent in the West. As the saying goes, what's done is done.